website, what informed majority of our findings were experiences, and unfortunately for us in our group, we had four of us who have actually used the brand. The brand is Food Plus Chandarana, based in Kenya. Which basically focuses on food. What we learned about their brand is, and one of the key things about their brand is really around their focus on food and focus on niche food. So, the purpose that we even created for them is a tagline called From Sauces to Wine, because they have a very wide variety of condiments, sauces, wines, things that you wouldn't really get ordinarily from a mass market supermarket. So they're very focused on their product, and they're very focused on variety and the quality of the product that they have. The other thing we learned about the brand is that they're very focused on having a very differentiated customer experience. They say it on their website boldly that they want to have service with a smile, and they're more than just food, and they're more than just food extends into that whole experience that they want to provide their customers. So they want to connect with their customers and therefore offer that differentiated customer experience. And employee engagement seems to be important for them as well. We did learn, however, through the process that whilst we discovered that this is what they said were their priorities, there's some things that didn't quite connect, and there were some gaps that we saw in what they put out there and what we actually experienced from them. And so therefore, some of the things around differentiated customer experience, I think, extend to possibly the options that they provide customers in terms of WhatsApp shopping and online shopping. But online shopping, for example, isn't fully functional.
So one killer culture or ritual?
The killer cultural ritual, goodness, is to celebrate, well, for us, I think that the treat everyone equitably will probably be the ritual that will really change the organization significantly, because what came out quite strongly is there is a little bit of racism that comes out of the brand and is evident even in checkout, in their decision-making, etc., because authority and approval is restricted to certain groups of people. And so therefore, one of the rituals we really wanted to introduce is to make sure that everyone is treated equally within the brand.
How helpful were the tools?
Amazing. I mean, to look at a brand and discover things about the brand just using a website and your experiences really was an enlightening process for us. Even through, for example, if I was to talk about the last experience where we're talking about treating everyone equitably, it is only from a shopping experience where we actually noticed that at the checkout process, everything has to be approved by certain people. Just that small aspect actually gives us so much information about who the brand is, what their essence is, and what their culture is. And so it was just a really great process to go through the whole business model canvas and putting thoughts down to create then the culture canvas. It was very empowering, absolutely empowering. I think that's what I can say.
All right, thank you very much. And I think you are within your time, Seema. So Chantel has not had the buzzer come on.
You know what I did? Wabi? I need to make a confession. I literally have my timer, but I've been streaming on YouTube so that we have the group presentations, and I didn't set the timer. So Seema, you are off the hook. I'm actually not sure how you're doing on time. All right, next group, Wabi, go for it.
All right, so we shall have Loise for Team Yellow. Did I pronounce your name right?
Liesel.
Liesel?
Liesel. It's fine.
Liesel. I'm sorry, Liesel.
No worries.
All right.
Okay.
You have 5 minutes starting now.
Okay. So, hi, everyone. We were looking at KCB Bank in Kenya. And I think the most important things that came out of our investigation yesterday was really around their priorities, what they focus on, and their values. So the values were around inspiration, simplicity, and friendliness. And I think when we went through their website and the stuff that we saw there, it is very much focused around simplicity. So that's one thing that we saw that they kind of get right. the inspiration one, I think we're still struggling with, to see if it really, if their products come out as inspiring, if they come out as inspiring their clients to do better, to help them really become what they want to become. So their whole purpose is really in simplifying your world to enable progress. So I think they have a very sound purpose, very aspirational type of purpose, enabling progress in the country. But I do feel from their brand perspective and their websites, there's a little bit of disjointedness in how that comes across. Some of the things that they also focus on is employees. We still have a little bit of research to do to really understand whether their employee propositions and the way that they advertise their posts and things like that around employees really speaks to those goals and aspirations of them in terms of being inspiring, creating simplicity for their clients. Is their website complex or simple? Is it easy to find their products? So I think we still have a little bit of investigation to do. But I think we learned quite a lot in terms of what we could find out of this company. Another interesting thing which we came across is they're very proud. They're proud of their history, proud of where they came from. So in all their websites, and as you click and go through deeper into the website, it's all about their history. So, a very proud history of how they've built up one of the first banks to be awarded the railway contract in, I don't know, 200 years ago.
Okay,
and,
you're halfway through your time.
So okay, awesome. So let me move on to the rituals. Some of the rituals that we came up with, I'm just looking here as well around collaboration. We came up with 3 rituals that we thought was good to help them in this purpose and getting to what they want to do with their clients. The first one is gratitude rituals. So really have for their employees rituals of gratitude embedded within their organization, so that we appreciate each other and show gratitude in terms of living out these values. And that's how we want to link to the inspiration value as well. Also, from a customer perspective, more focus on the customer. So placing a cutout of the customer, for instance, in the room and all meeting rooms with you, so that you have that seat of the customer, even, cutouts of their personas or whatever, that you design specifically with the customer in the room, and that you make decisions specifically for the client. And we think this will enable the simplicity one as well, in terms of simplifying things for your customers. Okay, so those are a couple of rituals. And then the last one, what was that?
How helpful was
tools. I think that was absolutely awesome. Not just this spread out of looking at it from a customer perspective, from an employee perspective, from a business perspective, from a brand perspective. We learned quite a lot in terms of looking at the websites and what detail you can actually find out about a company just by digging a little bit deeper into their clients, into what they're saying about the clients, about the company, and all of those good things. And I think we had a lot of expertise in the room as well. Guys that focus specifically, for instance, on employees, and guys that focus specifically on business design, and some of our team members that focus specifically on the client. And we applied that expertise in our experience as well on this. So I think the templates worked very well. We struggled with some of them, but I think we got there. We're getting there. I think there's still a couple of investigations that we have to do, and some calls that we have to make in terms of holistically, what does this tell us now about the brand? What are the things that we want to change?
Okay,
and
so you feel that you're going to be able to use these tools when you get back to work?
Definitely.
To be able.
Definitely.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah,
thank you very much. You have used your time well. Still have 25 seconds to go. Thank you.
Cool.
All right, and so we go to Team Blue. Michelle. You want to unmute yourself, Michelle?
Yes, hi everyone. So our brand was Checkers, and what we learned about them is that they have a big focus on developing local. It is one of their values, but they have a focus on developing their employees and developing their communities. Also, looking at sustainable ways of packaging and sourcing some of the products they have in store. So that value of theirs really comes through in their initiatives and the way in which they have set up some of the information and practices. The second thing is also that they want to be better and better, and they want to do the right thing, which really does come out in their content, in some of the content that we found on the website. And also, again, the initiatives that they do, how they have some of the offerings they have also to their customers. And then the last thing is really that we as a team experience this brand quite differently, from what they have in their content, what they aspire to, what they advocate, versus the quick online experience. While we were doing research, especially the guys that hasn't interacted with the brand yet because it is South African, and then also versus the in-store experience. So how that sort of is perceived differently, and maybe how also some of these mismatches get into the market. Then the second question is, the killer ritual is really making time to say what we are grateful for, celebrating the small milestones that we achieve, big or small or however it is, but making regular time to do that and to really put a focus on that. And then thirdly, in terms of these tools, I think we all used it or find it very useful. It also helped us to focus on smaller little things, instead of saying it's this huge thing, brand, where do we start? How do we put things into perspective? And then all tying it back in together, with that culture canvas, using all that information and actually putting on paper, what we want to have as this culture, or maybe what we perceive as the culture in the organization.
Fantastic. Thank you. You have reduced your time very well. You're halfway through the mark. So thank you very much, Michelle. And let's go to the green team. Mariette. You want to unmute?
Okay. Okay, time starts now. Hello.
Yes, time starts now.
Okay, so we had Safaricom in Kenya.
Safaricom.
Learned a lot about the organization, the environment. Yeah, I thought I'll quickly just show you. Can you see? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so basically the goal is for their products and services to transform lives and contribute to sustainable living throughout Kenya. So very much community orientated, simple, transparent, honest for you. And exactly as the others have also said, we are looking to see, is this what they're saying and what we are getting from the website, etc. similar, but it seems as so far no big issues, which I was saying is difficult because we sometimes always start with where the issues are. Very interesting. Interesting to get a company to think through that is being known to be the best company to work for, even bigger like brands as Coca-Cola. I mean, that's huge. And their leader is also promoted everywhere. I mean, we saw a USB executive development process, article also about him. And the organizational tone, friendliness, a part of the community, local language. So very much that local, we are part of coming through. The killer rituals, it was interesting because we spoke about the fact that even though it's very friendly, etc., when you read the documents and you look at what, there's this nearly structured, governance-focused area, and our Kenyan colleagues told us that the country is quite, organized. Formal, thank you. Very formal. And one thing that we did see is also in the way in which this organization manages it, they make sure that corruption is, for instance, sorted out and say, no, we don't stand for that, etc. But there's a lot of formal governance structures. I mean, you get a sense it's very regulated, but it is obviously a telecom, so that needs to be there. But what we then said in rituals, it will be great if we could bring the implementers. So those guys that are eventually going to deliver the end product, that they have the liberty to set deadlines and get
Okay.
senior leaders hands-on involvement in project implementation, through maybe even storytelling. And then I just think in terms of the process, we enjoyed the process. I think we also did a lot of separate work and then bring it together. I think specifically on the culture canvas, as I said yesterday, that was amazing, because when you start and you struggle, and then as you move along, you actually start seeing the picture coming together. So that was great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mariette, for your presentation. And yes, you still had some time left, about 2 minutes. Good job. All right, and let's end with the orange team. Marie-Lise, did I say your name right?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
So good morning, everybody. And thank you, Team Orange, for allowing me to represent us. So we worked with F&B, but specifically the business banking division of F&B. And so the top 3 things that we've learned about F&B is that it's got a very clear vision of helping to create a better world, and specifically by being a trusted money manager. F&B and also in the business banking space have a very clear how can we help you brand promise that's aligned with their vision, and also a very strong message of innovation and providing innovative solutions to customers. What we've also learned is that there seems to be a disconnect between the brand promise and what customers experience. So even though it's a very dynamic brand with a very strong message, customers do not necessarily experience it that way. The other thing that we've learned is that employees seem to be engaged with the brand. The reviews that we found were very positive. However, when we've investigated the job ads and how they position the job ads, it were very technical. We lacked, we didn't find anything around values. We didn't find the softer parts or the softer skills that are required to help enable values and to support the brand, which eventually feeds into what the customer experience. So if you connect all those dots, that part was definitely lacking for us, and how they communicate their job ads to the world out there. So I just want to open the rituals just to make sure that I don't mention something that we didn't agree on. So what we've agreed on that would help in terms of feeding into the culture that we envision for F&B, so they can close that disconnect between the brand promise and the client, is mindful moments with employees, and cross-departmental gatherings, sort of a cross-pollination effect, but on a softer level. And the reason why we wanted to bring that in was F&B has this very strong dynamic of being first to market, and it might lack the empathy on what that means for the customer. It might not always be the most customer-centric solution, but because we're so innovative, we will be first to market and we will fix the customer experience gaps later. And then the knock-on effect on the employee. And then we found that in F&B structure, it's a very siloed approach. So they have products and they have channels, and they all have their own agenda. And somehow in all of that, it needs to come together for the customer, which it doesn't always do. And that's what we see in the customer reviews. So the rituals are really aimed at saying, let's bring the employee together in this drive to be first to market. So the mindful moments and the cross-departmental sort of softer feed into the employees so that we can start to break down that siloed effect. And then the third question was, how helpful were these tools? I think as a team, we found it to be amazing. Working on the boards, even though we did it individually, as a group, we came together and we discussed the boards, and it flowed perfectly into the culture canvas. We could connect those dots to see where the strengths are, where the weaknesses are, and we could plot that onto the canvas to give us this beautiful picture of how we want to drive the ideal culture that would close the gap between the brand promise and what the customer is saying.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Marie-Lise. Well within your time, still had a minute left, so thank you so much. And I think just in summary, if I could summarize what each one of you said, 3 things popped out. It was interesting how everybody said, you know, it's one thing for you to stay stuff out to the public, say all these beautiful, wonderful things on the website, but is that what actually happens? So website or public promises versus actual, and what is actually on the ground. In Kenya, we have got a saying that says, kwa ground vitu ni different. That's Swahili for saying on the ground, sometimes things are a little different than what you would actually expect it to be. And I know the Kenyans must be smiling around this because it's a thing that a lot of times happens. And the second thing was how this canvas really reminds us to be very mindful around our people, the employee focus, and how to really plug that into the customer experience. And that proverbial question between where do we feel we are crossing over the boundary into HR. So I think these tools then help us to be able to work together instead of looking like we are stepping on each other's boundaries. And the last thing about the tools, great feedback about how helpful the tools are. It's really very exciting to see teams like NCB and Nedbank having a number of you on here, because then of course, when you get back, you don't want to do this by yourself. You're not going to be able to do it by yourself. And so it's good when a number of you join the master classes. So yeah, great stuff. Thank you very much. And I hand over back to Chantel in the studio. Chantel?
Fantastic.
Testing,
Thank
1, 2,
you.
3. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Wabi, reporting there from Kenya. It's a lovely, lovely moderation you did there. Thank you so much for that. Okay, fantastic. So we spent the day yesterday stepping into the world of the brand, looking at the organizations. And now I'm going to ask you to just pull yourself out of that, because now we're going to go into the world of the customer. So I want you to get a real good understanding of what the customer sees, what they feel, what they experience. And we're going to go into some of what Joe described yesterday. We want to see what the experience is that happens inside. All right. And sometimes that's very difficult because we don't necessarily articulate how we feel. So the things I feel sometimes in interactions with a brand is not something that I express to anyone, because I actually don't want them to know exactly what's going on inside me. I wrote an interesting, you're going to laugh now, I wrote an interesting little email yesterday to a company where I've been buying my underwear from. The company is called Booty, and they do this like a bamboo underwear. And if you haven't worn Booty yet, it is like a major, it's like life-changing. My butt has never been so happy to be in this Booty brief. All right. So I've been like, I deny myself a whole lot of things, and I'm pretty stingy. Usually everything goes to my kids. But I started wearing the ski pants, the tights, and the briefs about 2 years ago. And what's happened is they've changed the fabric over the last. I've placed like 3 orders of a pack of 3 with them, and they've changed the fabric. And the latest one I got was last week, and the fabric is so stretchy that it kind of falls off. The size is not the same, and there's little threads hanging, so the product hasn't been properly finished. And I wrote them an email yesterday, and I said to them, this is not cool. This is the only thing that I really give myself that's really expensive to buy, and I deserve better than this stuff you sent me. What are you going to do about it? Now, I'm telling you because, we've built up a relationship over the last few days, but there's not many people that I can actually tell the story to say, I'm really upset about this, because it's not about the product. It's about the act of spending that money on myself for something that's very intimate and something that's very personal and something that actually makes me feel quite good when I wear it. And somehow this company's made a few decisions that have just compromised the quality of the product. So I'm angry at them, and I'm kind of angry that this thing that I'm doing for myself, all of a sudden I'm getting a shitty product. All right, so we want to get to that stuff today. And to lead us into our first presentation, I'm going to hand over to Loise. And as Loise just gets herself lined up, I am communicating with Karen. We are trying to get her into the Zoom. We are streaming this on YouTube, so as a private stream, and I've given her that stream so that she can just, see something while she's trying to figure out, what's changed between yesterday and today. All right. So I think, Johan, if you've spotlighted me, can you just take that off and then we can get Loise spotlighted. Oh, you haven't done anything. All right. So let me get Loise spotlighted and myself off. All right. Fantastic. The wonderful Miss Loise all the way from Kenya. We cannot wait to see what you've got to share with us.
Thank you. So thank you, Chantel. Thank you, everyone. This is Loise from Studio 2 in Nairobi, Kenya, following up on Wavi's leadership. I hope you're all excited. We are going to be talking about their customer. And I know since Monday, we've been talking about different customers. But I always like to ask people, who is your customer? Do you really know your customer? If you were to just describe your customer, would you be able to do that? And one of the things that I have found is that many times as organizations, and even sometimes as champions of customer experience, when we are describing our customers, sometimes we describe them in masses. So we talk about, but our customers are the people who come to us for financial services. So we talk about people who come to us for financial services, assuming perhaps we're a bank. So we talk about masses, and many times we may not have taken the time to narrow down to an individual. And so that's the conversation that I'll be sharing in the next couple of minutes. Just looking at, is it possible for us to be able to define our customer in singularity? A couple of years back, I think maybe 2 years back, I was doing a talk or training to an organization, and I did this test. So I called, I think, 3 members of staff, different profiles, and then I was among them. So the 4 of us stood at the front, and I asked the team, the staff from the organization, amongst the 4 of us, who would they describe as their ideal customer? And that was based on the work that they do as an institution. And let me tell you, it was very interesting because the three members of staff that I brought in were, of course, different ages, different genders. So as a staff were giving responses, I am the only one that the staff felt I was not part of their customer. I would not be the ideal customer. And guess what? It was interesting when I actually revealed to them that I had been a consumer of their services several years ago. And it was simply because when they looked at me at the time, whatever it is that I was presenting, they were not able to connect the dots that probably she could have been, or she might also be, all right? And reason being, like I'm saying, is because sometimes when we think about our customers, we think about them in masses. So what we're gonna do now is to keep the masses off, use a funnel vision, and ask ourselves, who really is our customer? And to do that, I'm gonna just take you through a few tips on how we can develop what we are calling a persona, a customer persona. And why is this important? It's because it helps us to create a very rich and specific description of the person who comes to consume our products or services. And I don't know if you guys listen to radio, and I don't know which is your favorite radio station. Perhaps you could just type it on the chat if you do. And did you know that it is possible you listen to a certain program on radio, but that program is not meant for you? And how you know that is because if you sometimes find yourself getting angry at the presenter, at the radio presenter, at what they are saying. And you're like, but you can't say that. But what's wrong with that? What kind of topic is that? Anytime you find yourself getting angry, let me just put it out to you there. That program is not supposed to be for you. And that's a hypothesis. I invite you to test it over the next couple of days. If you actually ask the radio presenters who their audience is, they would be able to give you a persona. They're able to describe for you and tell you our audience is actually a 25 to 30-year-old middle-aged woman working in the city. These are her hobbies. So on that note, are we also able to do that for our customers? Because being able to develop that specific rich description of who it is that consumes our products or services enables us then to begin to ask ourselves, so what are the fears of this person? What do they need? What do they require? We begin to humanize our work and we begin to speak to the language that meets the needs of our consumers. So in order to do that, just a few definitions here and there, allow me to throw this up at you. Like I'm saying, we're developing a persona. And what we are basically looking at is understanding and defining the character of what would be our potential customer as it's presented or as it's perceived by others. So we'll be doing a little bit of imagination, we'll be doing a little bit of generalization, but even as we do that, our agenda is to come as close home as we can to be able to define that person. So in essence, what we'll be doing is almost developing an archetype. A very typical example of a certain person. So if you think Loise is your customer at NCBA Bank, why would you say Loise is your customer? What are those features or characteristics of Loise that make her your ideal kind of customer? All right. Now, why do we use persona development? For various reasons. Number one is to be able to help us have clarity on what our consumers' needs, experiences, behaviors, and goals are. Let me give you a personal example. I used to work for an institution that was a public service, and we used to be in the wildlife industry. Let me just put it out there. So we were caught in between, we are in the wildlife industry at the time, but we're also offering tourism services. And so when I joined the organization, I used to ask them, who's our competitor? And they would say our competitor, and they would mention other private parks or sanctuaries. And so one day I said, well, I agree those are competitors, but they're not only our competitors. Do you know that even restaurants are competitors? And I would tell them restaurants, amusement parks, and they would say, no, restaurants are not our competitors. And I said, okay, let's do an outline of who our consumer is, who comes to our parks, you know? And so when we started mapping out our persona in terms of their characteristics, in terms of their needs, in terms of their behaviors, we actually realized that this person who has this disposable income, coming not only to see the wildlife, but also coming to the park as a recreational enjoyment for recreation purposes, then it means that they can also seek other recreation services elsewhere, okay? And so being able to understand what are their needs when they come to the park, part of their needs is recreation, would help us then understand how do we meet those goals, all right? So creating that persona gives us the ability to understand what their goals are, what their behaviors are, and behaviors in terms of where do they seek for information, what do they do on their free time, how is their day like, even from morning till evening, at the point where they are shopping and choosing our organization as their preferred service provider. What steps do they take, all right? Again, using a persona helps us put ourselves in the shoes of the customer. And it helps us cross over from the, you know, when we sit in our big corporate offices, corner desks. So when we create a persona, we're able to step out from the corner desk and the office to be able to now begin to ask ourselves, So if I was this customer, what would I require, right? It also helps us understand that different people will have different needs. Remember I said at the beginning, sometimes when we think about our customers, we think about them in masses. And sometimes the assumption we make, even when we are creating, when we are doing product development, the assumptions are usually based on the mass needs. But creating customer personas gives us the opportunity to realize that they would have different needs. So we are a bank. We're offering a savings account. Let's say we've even created a specific savings account for women. I've seen sometimes organizations will decide, let's color code our account pink, because the biggest assumption is that, all ladies like pink. But when you create personas, then it helps you realize someone like Lois likes black. So if you give her a pink wallet, or you give her a pink checkbook, she might actually not use it. So personas help us understand the different needs of our customers and also identify specifically with those individuals. And even though they may be fictional, like I said, but because we are able to identify them individually, then it gives us understanding of what their motivations would be and what their real behaviors would be. Another thing that is important for us in this journey and why we should keep doing this is then to be able to understand. So when we are creating this persona, what are we saying? What is it, right? It is a way, like I said earlier, it is a way to help us as organizations, as individuals, as corporates, to connect with our customers on a human level, because we can actually even give them names. Creating a persona gives us the opportunity to give them names. I remember consulting for an institution, and one of the challenges I asked them to do is every time the senior management comes for a meeting, I told them to always have an empty seat, should always reserve an empty seat. And on that empty seat, that seat will always be for, so we created a name for their customer. And so at first it was weird, but then over time, during the conversations of consulting, sometimes I would hear the conversations and then I would turn to the seat and I would say, so what does Jane think? What do you people think Jane thinks? So it gives us the opportunity to connect with the customer at a human level. It gives us an opportunity to design experiences into journeys. And why this is important is because I know for all our organizations, we have different touch points. We have different service points, right? Sometimes we create those service points away from the journeys of the customer. So when you create the journey, it actually helps us then understand what would be the appropriate service points or touch points for our customers, all right? And like I said, the beauty about creating a customer persona is it makes us become proactive. And so it gives us the opportunity to start proactively thinking about what would be the problems of our customer, what would be the challenges of our customer. So if today we wanted to do a self-service ATM, for example, an ATM where you can both withdraw and deposit your cash, what does it take for the customer to get to that ATM? What fears would they have at the point where they want to deposit a check, at the point where they want to deposit cash? What would their fears look like? So being able to create that persona gives us the opportunity to actually be proactive. Now, what is it not? Because it's good to have clarity of what it is and what it's not. Sometimes, and as Wabi was talking during the sum up of what we learned yesterday, part of some of the challenges, and I don't know if you've encountered these challenges in customer experience, is because customer experience is so broad, sometimes it's possible to find yourself getting into other people's spaces. I use spaces in quotes, So when you're thinking about your employee experience, you find yourself getting into HR experience. Sometimes it is easy to get ourselves into the marketing space. Because then when we start creating personas and we start creating journeys, then the marketers will come and say, but aren't you doing segmentation? Isn't that our work? All right. Now, I want to make it clear that creating a persona is not an abstract breakdown of a marketing target market. It is not segmentation. That's not what we're doing. We are just clearly identifying who our current and potential customer is, and we are creating a personal profile, all right? Does it mean that we make assumptions? Yes, we will make assumptions, but those assumptions can be tested. And a lot of the times, you will realize that even as you're making these assumptions, you're making them based on feedback that you may have currently gathered through your satisfaction surveys and customer analysis, all right? When we create a persona, does it mean that then it is one size fits all? Absolutely not. So again, remember I said that when we are creating that persona, we are creating it to be able to help us understand the needs, the behaviors, the goals of our customers, but also to be able to appreciate that different customers will have different goals, all right? So it is not a one size fits all. So what that means is that it is possible to actually have 3 personas or even 4 personas within a certain product line or service line, so to speak, all right? Because the needs of our customers will be different. If you're thinking, for example, and let me just give you a few hints. Some of the case studies that we're going to be working on. So you have an organization like Checkers or Chanarana, both retail outlet supermarkets. Now, when you think about the customers that walk into those retail outlets, there are different kinds of customers, all right? So you would find a middle-aged woman, you would find a senior citizen, so to speak. So those are different personas. So what I'm basically trying to say is when you create your persona, don't stop and assume that because you've created this one persona, then it's a one size fits all. Absolutely not. You are actually, in fact, for us to be able to deliver better, we'll be encouraged to create more than one persona, because then it helps us explore the different needs of our customers and the different kinds of customers that would be coming to pay us a visit. So let's do a little bit of exercise and just thresh out. So this persona, what does it involve, right? So think about yourself, for example. Let me just throw this out here. Think about yourself as an individual, and you're a customer of, so in your mind, I want you to visualize your favorite store or your favorite, a place you like to get service from. So it could be a restaurant, it could be a supermarket, it could be a clothing store, all right? So you have that on your mind, okay? So I want you to think about what are your needs when you go to that store. Just visualize, and maybe you can note it down on your notebook. What's the one need? What's the one need that takes you to that store? Okay. What do you like as an individual? So there's a need that takes you to that store, okay? What do you like as an individual? And you can list like 3 things. So for example, I like to shop at a clothing store in Nairobi that's called Mr. Price, okay? But when I think about my needs, what do I enjoy? I like to shop, I like to eat. I really love to eat, especially good food. I like to travel, okay? So those are the things that I like. What things stress you out? Just list like 2 things that stress you out. What are some of the things that stress you out? You could list 2 or 3 that stress you out. Okay. And then, so you've written 2 or 3 things that stress you out. Okay. Think about the store that you identified, all right, or the place that you usually like to go. What things do they do that excite you? What are some of the things that they do that excite you, that make you want to go there? Just 1 or 2 things, all right? You're thinking about that. Okay. What are the things that they do that you don't like? Just 1 or 2, okay? And lastly, what are 1 or 2 things that they would do that would even make you commit better? Commit with your wallet, you know, that would make you increase your wallet spend. Because those are areas of opportunities for them. So right there, we've created something just by thinking about ourselves and our experiences. It's all over the place, it may look like, but I want to bring it home, all right? So you've thought about where you go, you've thought about who you are as an individual, you've thought about your likes, your preferences, and you've thought about what are the things that, you know, your favorite store could do different. And those are areas of opportunity. Now, imagine if we were able to do something like that for our consumers, you know, for our customers. Imagine if we were able to actually sit down and profile them and create a persona, you know, that says, you know, this is our client, her name is Loise. Let's work with what is on the screen. So her name is Nolu, she's a consultant, she's South African, she's single. One of the things that, you know, she likes to say or believes in is she wants to be enabled and empowered to live a fulfilled life. So what would her needs be? All right. So if we're able to list down what their needs would be, she wants a financial friend. She wants enablement and empowerment. She wants to feel proud. You know, she feels pressure, commitment. I feel pressure, commitment, and I'm looking for real freedom. So if we're able to identify her fears, her desires, her needs, imagine how easy then it would be for us to give her an appropriate product or solution. And that's why it's critical for us to do customer personas, because they give us the opportunity to dig down, to understand what is the composition of our clients. Here's another example, right? So we have a lady here. We're gonna call her Wavi. She's 28. She's female. She's an assistant engineer. She lives in Botswana. She's single. She's young and vibrant, loves to party. So think about who she is. Think about what her needs are. She likes clarity about roles and expectations. She looks for opportunities to voice her needs. She's a supportive leader. She looks for a space to grow. She wants training. She wants to feel a sense of belonging. Now, with this in mind, which of your products or which of your services, or what about your process, all right, would be able to speak to her needs? She has fears. Some of her fears are achieving targets, lack of motivation, feeling stuck. So as an organization that is seeking to provide a service to Wazi, our engineer, what is it that you can be able to do to get her motivated? What is it that you can be able to do to offer her opportunities for growth? How would your product or your service be able to help her not feel trapped? What processes do you have? And how do those processes motivate her? How do your processes discriminate her? All right, when you ask her to, for example, if there's a place where it says marital status, and then you want to ask her, please expound on your marital status, right? So what would that process mean to her? would it be a source of rejection for her? All right. So the reason why we're doing the personas, like I said, is to help us to be able to clearly understand the needs, the goals, and the behaviors of our customers, so that then we are able to appropriately serve them. And serve them, it is through our product offering, through our service offering, but also through our processes and procedures. And then also be able to help us understand what would be the appropriate touch points or service points, what would be their pain points, all right? And how do we ensure that the service points or the touch points that we present to our customers will actually speak to their needs, will either speak to their goals, or will take away their fears. I hope it's making sense. Is it? Just give me a thumbs up. Let me see, is it making sense? All right, let me take a moment to check where we are at on our chat. I can see lots of information coming in on our chat. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
Louise, I think we're doing well. Thank you so much. And I just want to quickly pick up on some of the comments in the chat. So yes, we've given you some of these examples on the screen. We will load those personas into the platform. I know the slides are not that clear because the information is a lot on the slides. And what we've given you is persona examples from the two different platforms. So we use Smartly and Expressia, and we will tell you more about that tomorrow. All right.
Thanks.
Fantastic. So Louise, thank you so much for taking us through this. Let's see if we might have a few questions. So and the templates, we will share with you what you're going to be doing this afternoon on persona development and empathy mapping.
Okay, so we take a few questions at this point.
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay, so I see Sheila had raised her hand.
Hi.
Yes, go ahead, Sheila.
Thank you, Louise, for that information. Very helpful. Now, my question is, what would your advice be? Because our customers' lives and experiences keep changing. Mm-hmm. So like the 28-year Wavi that we looked at, maybe now she's starting her job and income is probably 100,000. And then in a couple of years, she's now a mother with maybe a slightly higher income or no income because she's now a stay-at-home mom. Mm-hmm. Thinking about it like from a bank perspective, we usually update data if there is need to add information to the customer's platform. The only thing that you would probably pick is probably the number of years the customer has been with you, so you can estimate the age. But what would your advice be in trying to keep up with these customers so that what you think was relevant 2 years ago might not be speaking to me now or in the next 6 months? What other activities can we do to stay engaged with our customers so that we can properly address their needs?
Okay, all right. So good question. Let me just share something here and say that because our customers are constantly evolving, all right? Our customers are constantly evolving. And the beauty about them evolving is that if we are able to map them out, we can evolve with them, okay? So what would happen is that when you're doing your customer persona, you are identifying Wabi who's 28 at this particular point. So you are mapping out what her fears are. You're mapping out where she is at now. You're also mapping out what her goals and aspirations are, okay? So as my screen is coming up, as you map out what her goals and aspirations are, you have the opportunity to project what perhaps her future aspirations would be. You have the opportunity to project what her expectations would be going forward, all right? And you have the opportunity to also project, as you map out what her fears would be, you have the opportunity to map out what her current fears are and what her future fears would be, all right? So when you map that out, it gives you an opportunity to project for a certain period of time. So you're able to project for where she is at between now and probably the next X number of years, but also what the future looks like for her in terms of future aspirations, in terms of future expectations. However, this process of creating customer personas is something that needs to be a continuous process. So what you want to do is you want to be able to invite teams of people at different intervals, like when you're doing your strategy review meetings, sometimes you want to review your strategy, say, after every 3 years. So when you're doing your strategy reviews, you also want to do your customer persona reviews. So you want to invite a group of people to be able to discuss, to share out. And usually when you have team members from different departments, you could also just do focus group discussions with 2 or 3 customers to be able also to bring them on board and have their voice speaking to you. So if you keep it consistent over a period of time, it helps you be able to visualize and anticipate what their future needs are and keep up with them. I hope I answered that. So I see a few more hands have been raised. Let's see, let me just see through my chat. I'm trying to see who else has raised their hands.
Louise, I'm just going to stop your screen for now. I can easily see who's raising hands. So let's get Nancy and then Joy, and then I'll call out the rest. Nancy, go for it. And Louise, I'm happy to support you and throw in some ideas. Cool?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Louise, for the session. It was a very interesting session. My question is around the sources of the input that would help you then build these personas. Maybe can you share with us some of the sources of this input? Because I'm thinking that as much as you're trying to describe this fictitious person, it has to be very close to the reality. And I believe that there are places where you can gather this data that would help you, or information that would help you build a persona that resonates to your business. So maybe if you could share with us some of the sources or ways of gathering the input that then would help you build a persona that speaks to the sort of customers that you might have in your profile.
Okay. So number one, let me just take you through what that process would look like. So get a few people, gather around a few people who have knowledge of your target markets, all right? So this could be, like I said, there could be different team members within your organization, and feel free to involve staff at all levels. Don't only just stick to management, okay? So feel free to involve staff at all levels because they are part of your community in terms of the organization. They're aware of your target market, and you could have different kinds of focus group discussions. So you could have a focus group discussion with some of your staff members. You could have a focus group discussion with some of your customers. I'm sure over time you're able to create relationships with different kinds of customers. So you could use that, and you could create a workshop where, there's a lot of brainstorming. So that could be one way to do that. The other way is through getting interviews, doing one-on-one interviews with your customers. You could use even questionnaires. You could dish out questionnaires. You could use focus group discussions. You could review your voice of the customer, feedback from that, what your previous research has said. You could look at your web analytics. And I'm assuming that we are able to work with business analyst teams to be able just to get data that helps us know, who's checking us out, what is their profile. Even on your social media handles, you're able to get very good analytics that could give you data. And that would be some of the sources that you can use, all right? The key thing, yes.
I want to finish your sentence, and then I want to add something just around the philosophy and why we're doing the whole persona thing today. Go for it.
Okay. So I just wanted to say that the key is that we are creating a person, and there is so much data that is available to us that even though this person may look like they're fictitious, if we actually use the data, like I said, from analytics, from a voice of the customer, from our survey findings, from research, from focus group discussions, and even team members within our organization, we would actually be able to present an almost real character of an individual. Yeah. Go ahead, Chantel.
All right. So just around, I'm seeing a lot of comments, questions about data. So I want to just bring you back. The reason why we develop personas here is not to report accurately. It is not to market to them. It is to design for them. All right. Now, I know data makes you feel safe, but there's data that will help you. But also it's really, really important that you make this a real person that is messy. All right. So I don't want you to end up with a neat persona that exactly matches what's happening in your customer database. All right. So if you know your product is suited to a specific age person, or if you know, like Booty, they are marketing underwear to females, you're not going to create a male persona. All right. So be wise with your data. But also, I'm going to ask you just to abandon this, you know, being a data junkie, because accuracy is not going to help you here. Getting really empathetic is going to help you. So I saw some comments about archetypes. I saw, you know, so our philosophy is get your persona to be a real person. Some of the images that Loise showed you, those are personas that we've created based on customers that have been in co-design sessions for a Kia. One of those beautiful illustrations there is actually our illustrator used a photograph of a real customer that was in the sessions for Kia that helped us design the journey for Kia for a first-time car buyer. All right, so we know, and her name is Pearl. We actually called her Pearl, her original name, and we created this persona for her because Pearl had a very specific story. Pearl's story was she's like the first one in her family to own a car. She used public transport for years. She walked in the rain. She's very fashion conscious, and every time, you know, her clothes would spoil and her whole look would just go terrible. And you know, tracking her story as she bought her first car was just phenomenal. And when she designed the journey for Kia, because essentially, if you want to be customer centric, your messy customers need to help you design those journeys. She pointed out very different things than what we pointed out as a design team. So it's very helpful to have real customers and to create some of your personas based on their collective characteristics. So it doesn't have to be one, but it's got to be human and it's got to be filled with emotion, because we're using this for the purposes of design. Johan, go for it.
No, sorry. Yeah, I think just with the data thing, I want to ask a rhetorical question. You know, how much did all the data help the companies during COVID, the pandemic? Not to say that data is not important, but within a flash of a month, the data was useless, and the only thing how you could actually survive as a business was to deliver on people's needs, because all of a sudden everybody was thrown back into basic needs during the strict lockdown, and if you don't empathize, then you couldn't basically survive. And I think that's why we see quite a few businesses that started thriving after or during this COVID period, because I think they were really empathizing with what was the struggles people had, and I could adopt to a real person. So I think, you know, this year is really a show and tell for me around big data. And again, not to say it's not important, it is, But I think the problem with big data is it is a very static thing. It's like the Titanic. It's not nimble. It's not agile. It goes on its course. And when COVID hit, the big guys couldn't even move 1 degree to the side. Where the smaller guys who could really empathize with people jumped in and actually started thriving and making huge or more profits by doing that. So I just wanted to throw I'm very passionate about that, so I just wanted to throw it in there.
All right. Thank you, Johan. I am watching the time. We will have Rosaria arrive in less than 15 minutes. I also want to give you just a bit of a break before we go into that presentation. We've got 4 people that still have questions. What's the best, how would you like to deal with this? So we can continue answering questions, or we can have a break and park the questions for later, as long as the people don't forget their questions. How are we looking?
Chantal?
What would you, yeah, go for it, Louise.
Can I just say a quick one? Because I've seen someone asking, how do we do personas for the products? I think it was Richie. I just wanted to clarify, the personas we're doing are not for products or services. We're doing personas for customers, okay? We're doing personas for customers. And just to reiterate, reason being so that we are able to map out what their needs, behaviors, goals are, their fears and expectations, so that then our processing, our product, our service offering, our touch points are speaking to those needs, goals, aspirations. So we're not mapping out personas for products or services, we are mapping out customer personas. Yeah, just wanted to highlight that.
And just, so I'm going to ask Mariette, Mercy, Juliet, and Joyce, just write down your question on a piece of paper so that you don't lose track of it, all right? Because I do think a break is important. Just to quickly wrap up Louise's question, the question that Louise was answering there. Sometimes, and especially Richie, I think you guys might have, you know, a car loan, a home loan, insurance product. Then you need to focus on the needs of the customer that's going to need that. And you would develop a needs-based persona. So without putting on the product lens, sometimes the need is different. So, you know, if you've got a business that requires fleet financing for their cars, that's very different from a first-time car buyer that needs vehicle financing for their first car. So those would be different personas, but we ask to not just put on your product lens. All right, but so what I'm going to do, we're going to have a 12-minute break. Please, the folks who have their hands up, do not lose your question. We will get to your questions. What we don't want to do is bleed into the time of the guest speaker. So after Rosaria's session, we will just go back to the Q&A and deal with your curiosities. All right, can we do that? Happy with that? You can show me a thumbs up if you're not happy with. All right, stunning. So Johan, if you can set our timer for us, and then Rosaria will join us probably a little bit before 11 o'clock, but let's be back sharp so that we don't miss any of that.